Welcome in the latest Rivals Down South. I'm SEC Mike Bratton. He is Hudson Mason, former Georgia quarterback. And the regular season may be over, Hudson, but the drama never stops in the SEC. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, Mike. How about you, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. And we were just talking off air. So we just had the awards announced here in the SEC. We got Jayden Daniels, Offensive Player of the Year. Dallas Turner, Alabama's outstanding outside linebacker, Defensive Player of the Year. And wouldn't you know it, the Defensive Player of the Year knocked out the Offensive Player of the Year. And that's probably why Alabama went on to win the West, to win the SEC, and probably why they're going to win the national championship. How ironic is that?
Yeah, right. I mean, it didn't even hit me until you brought it up to us. Just talking a couple minutes ago. I actually kind of completely forgot about it. But really for me, no big surprise on Jayden Daniels winning, Offensive Player of the Year, Dallas Turner winning Defensive Player of the Year. That's the fourth consecutive year in a row an Alabama player has won Defensive Player of the Year, which is an incredible accomplishment. 4 years in a row coming from the same side of the defense at Alabama. So, and then you look at what Jayden Daniels did at LSU this year. If he's going to win the Heisman, certainly he'll win Offensive Player of the Year in his conference, and rightfully deserved.
Yeah, but how long do you think this offseason LSU fans are going to have to be sitting around saying, hey, we had the Offensive Player of the Year, likely the Heisman Trophy winner, and we lost 3 games? I mean, this is just such a season that should be celebrated, and I feel like Jayden Daniels, he'll never quite get his due because the defense was so awful. I think that is something that's going to haunt LSU fans, not just this offseason, but maybe till the end of time.
Oh, I agree. I mean, he put up Joe Burrow type numbers, maybe, in total touchdowns. But it could have been a really, really special year. And for that young man, it deserved to be, because that's what he was special. The defense didn't do their part. The defense in Baton Rouge, it's unacceptable to be at LSU and to have as bad of a defense as they had this year. And really, if you look at, the last, 4 years, one was Bo Pelini there. Their defense was trash that year as well under Bo Pelini. So they've had 2 just historically horrific defenses at a place where there is never a problem of getting talent. It's just flat out unexcusable to ever put that bad of a defense on the field at LSU.
Right, and as I call it, a national championship offense and FCS defense. That's what they had in Baton Rouge this season. I can't believe there hasn't been a coaching change. But, hey, I don't want to completely overlook Cody Schrader. Missouri's outstanding running back, was a walk-on. I believe they only took Schrader because they were going on a recruiting visit, and someone said, hey, you got to look at this kid. He was a friend of a booster, something like that. They gave him an opportunity to walk on at Mizzou, and he kind of epitomizes what Eli Drinkowitz's program has been this year. Overlooked. No one gave him a shot. I believe they were voted 6th at SEC Media Days to finish, not in the SEC, in the SEC East. Yet they were the ones until Bama, gave Georgia the toughest game, and Cody Schrader won the Burlsworth Award, given to the best player that started his career as a walk-on. Just how impressed have you been with Cody Schrader, who he just seemed to get better and better and better as the season went on?
Yeah, I got to actually call a Missouri game earlier in the year, and so I got to see him up close and in person and was really impressed. I mean, and then you mentioned the Georgia game, the fact that, your stars got to perform at their best in the biggest games, and that's really what he did all season long. Then you take into consideration, where he came from, how much he was overlooked, walk on to D2 to D1. Nobody even really knew his name outside of a Missouri fan at the beginning of the year. It was a heck of an accomplishment and a heck of a season for him. And he was a main piece as to why, Eli Drinkwitz wins SEC Coach of the Year, why they got to the Cotton Bowl and they're going against Ohio State, and why it's one of the best seasons in Missouri football history. So a lot of really cool success stories this year for the Missouri football program. And it's hard to say that there's any one bigger than Cody Schrader.
Yeah, and how quickly things can change, Hudson. I mean, at the beginning of the season, they struggled against, I believe it was Memphis. they had kind of a cakewalk to start the season. They had that big game against Kansas State. The fans are booing Brady Cook. They're wondering, who's our next coach going to be? I'm done with this Eli Drinkwitz. He's never had a winning season. Flash forward a couple months. Hey, he's SEC Coach of the Year, program on the rise. We just landed one of the top defensive backs out of the transfer portal from Clemson. Is this sustainable, do you think, all the success that they're having at Missouri, now with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league? If we were in the 12-team playoff era now, unfortunately for Mizzou fans, they'd be in the playoff. But any shot with a lot of pieces coming back next season that they can stay in that conversation. Not asking you to outright predict a playoff bid or anything like that, but do you think they'll compete for that next fall in a tougher SEC?
I think it's going to be a stretch. I think when you look at the way Georgia recruits, the way Texas recruits, Oklahoma and Alabama, those teams, and remember the SEC is going away with division, so there's no longer going to be an East representative and a West. It's just going to be the two top teams amongst a lot of really good teams already. So where does Missouri fall into that? I think for them, it's going to be a matter of how much can they capitalize off of this success. You mentioned the top, DB in the portal that they got from Clemson. That's one. I think they need to go out and find maybe another elite pass rusher or two. They got their answer at quarterback and Brady Cook. They need to keep pieces in place. I'm sure there's probably some poaching trying to go on. Luther Burden was one of the best receivers in the SEC this year. They need to keep him. They need to keep both their coordinators in place this year that were fantastic hires for them. So I think it's too early to tell, but I think it's a matter of how much can Eli Drinkwitz capitalize on the recruiting and the portal trail and make this even a better team next year, because the competition is only even going to get harder and better next year with Oklahoma and Texas coming to the SEC.
Right. And speaking of recruiting and transfer portal, I mean, this is what I really wanted to ask you. There's just so much going on at the same time, and there's different ways to build a roster. I mean, look at Lane Kiffin. He goes portal heavy. You look at someone like Billy Napier, who's trying to do it not strictly through recruiting, but primarily through recruiting. But then you see we're going to get to news here. Trevor Etienne, star running back, entered the portal today. What's the use of signing an elite high school talent if they come in, perform, and then try to move on to a different school? What would be your preferred method, you think, of building a roster? Would you go the high school ranks? Would you go the transfer portal? And, I mean, I don't know. This has got to be one of the toughest times ever to be a college coach, to keep a roster and keep it together.
Yeah, it's quite frankly, Mike, it's miserable to be a college coach right now. I talk to them every single week. I call games for ESPN. I travel the country. I talk to them every week. And I promise you, every single one I talk to is whining and complaining and is telling me how miserable of a situation it is. Unless you're making $10 million a year, which there aren't a whole lot of coaches in college football making that stupid amount of money. All of them hate this situation that they're in college football, because to your point, you draft or you recruit a kid out of high school and you develop them, and then all of a sudden he gets poached by somebody else. Look what happened to Wake Forest last year when they find this quarterback that nobody wanted out of high school, and then he has this great career at Wake Forest, and then all of a sudden he's at Notre Dame, and so that's the reality of the situation we have. It's free agency in college football. I still think that high school kids are the way to build your culture and build your team, and you use the portal for filling gaps or filling needs where maybe you get a little light on your roster. But I also understand how coaches are looking at certain positions like a quarterback right now, and they're going, do I want the 18-year-old kid out of high school who is probably going to have to wait a year or two, learn the system, get fit, get more stronger, get bigger, or I can go get a guy who's played college football like a Cam Ward, like a DJU, that has experience in production at the FBS level, and he can play right away. So I still think it's really high school is how you build the bulk of your team, and you use the portal to kind of mitigate the needs. But I also think a little bit of it is dependent on the position you play.
Right, and it's unfortunately for the lower levels, it seems like the SEC, they get their hand pick of a G5 and quite honestly, like you're saying, Wake Forest, the rest of Power Five, non-Big Ten, that maybe is just not at the SEC's level, and then they have to go to the FCS level, and they have to go to the Ivy League. I mean, it's filtering down to all of college football, and I don't know if it's good for the game, but it sure makes for a chaotic system. But hey, credit Lane Kiffin. I like to tease him, call him Lane Whiffin. He never wins the big game, but he certainly seems to have figured out this portal madness, how to build a roster, how to find success at a school that is not accustomed to having it. Do you think more SEC teams will take kind of the Lane Kiffin approach and just will have more than one portal king out there?
Yeah, I think they have to. I think part of the reason these coaches have become so portal heavy is because the patience for coaches to win, or the patience from ADs and boosters and presidents to allow these coaches 5 years to build their roster, that's rare now. That doesn't happen, especially with the amount of money coaches are getting paid now. They want it in a microwave, right? They want to add 30 seconds on the microwave, and they want their result. And that's just the world, the instant gratification culture that we live in now. And so what is the way to win now? The easier way to win now is to go get 22, 23-year-olds out of the portal that have been playing college football and have experience, as opposed to, building it the right way, which is also the longer way, through high school kids. So I just think there is an immense amount of, look at Billy Napier. I mean, after 2 years, people are talking about firing the guy. I mean, you can't build a team and build a culture in 2 years. It used to be you got 5 years. Now it's 2 years in the SEC, and if you're not winning after 2 years, boy, I mean, you are on the hot seat. Thank God Josh Heupel did what he did last year, because imagine where he would be at Tennessee. And it just is. I mean, look at South Carolina. I mean, is South Carolina okay with kind of wandering in the 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 wilderness with Coach Beamer? I mean, they were winning 11 games a year with Coach Spurrier. So the competition and the desire to win now has forced these coaches to live and die through the portal.
Absolutely. And we'll have a little nugget that's going to fire Billy Napier up on the other side. We're going to talk about Georgia's schedule. It has leaked for next season, and why Alabama, Michigan could be the top rated game of the season. Welcome back into Rivals Down South. And how about it, Hudson? 2024 Georgia schedule has leaked. And after months and months, all off season really, of people mocking Georgia's schedule for 2023, they ain't nobody mocking this 2024 schedule. And we were talking about Trevor Etienne, Florida's outstanding running back, now in the portal. Sounds like he may be heading to Georgia, so they'll have an elite running back to go through this gauntlet. But how about it? I mean, what are the odds Georgia goes undefeated with this slate?
Yeah, just brutal, isn't it? But as college football fans, like this is what we're gonna love. I mean, you know, if you're a Georgia football fan or a Georgia season ticket holder, you've seen some pretty bad home games the past couple years. Now, it won't necessarily get much better in 2024 because, you know, your three best games are all on the road. Texas on the road, at Alabama, and then, you know, in Atlanta technically on the road as well. But for the most part, those games will rotate, and into the future, you'll get better home games. But man, this is so much better. I mean, you get really just only two cupcakes, and the fact that you get to see Texas, Alabama, keep that rivalry with Auburn, Ole Miss, plus your non-conference game is Clemson. I mean, I don't see any way that I don't know. Georgia just won 29 in a row, but I don't see how you get through undefeated with this schedule.
Right, but the beauty of this new format, Hudson, and no more East-West, we don't have to, you know, just win our division, and maybe one division's got three of the best teams, and we got to face not a cupcake on the other side, but certainly a team that doesn't belong in the SEC championship. To your point, there's probably no one. Texas, Alabama, it doesn't matter who it is. They're not going to go undefeated, most likely, through a gauntlet like this. So if you lose an early season game, heck, even if you lose a late season game, it keeps your hopes alive that you can reach that SEC championship. And with the expanded playoff, I mean, I hate to even say this because the SEC championship is such a great game and all that it means to the sport, at least it has for decades. I don't even know the importance of it. If I'm Georgia or Alabama, I may want to skip it as long as I'm firmly in the top 10, because that's just one less game these players have to go through before we get to the ultimate 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I mean, winning a championship still would get you that automatic, you know, spot into the playoff. And, you know, I guess if you're comparing the two, hey, you know, it would get you a bye in the first round is what they're saying. A conference champion would get a bye. So kind of like the NFL playoffs to an extent with the higher seed. Plus you'd be fighting, you know, for home field advantage. So I do think that there's certain things to continue to play for, even if you don't make it to your conference championship game. So, you know, I overall I like the 12-team playoff. I think, you know, it's going to incentivize players to keep playing, even though, you know, in the couple years past, they've quit and started playing for the NFL or things like that after their seasons were eliminated. So overall, I think it's good, but I don't know that we're ever going to see a streak like what we just saw with Georgia winning 29 in a row. With the parity and the toughness. I mean, I look at Georgia's schedule now, and it reminds me a lot of like playing in the SEC West. I'm like, man, like that's an SEC West schedule for Georgia right there.
Right. And this is just one of 16 schedules that have been released. Next week, we'll get the full slate. Cannot wait to see who Texas and Oklahoma have to face. You know, prayers to those fans who are going to get the gauntlet, no longer in the cupcake Big 12. Tennessee, Alabama, on and on and on. There's going to be so much to discuss. But speaking of Alabama, I mean, this Alabama-Michigan Rose Bowl epic showdown here, I still can't believe that Michigan opened as a favorite, particularly after we've all seen the video now. Michigan, when it got revealed, they had to face Alabama instead of Florida State, and I think a couple of their players hit the floor. They were that upset with having to face the mighty Crimson Tide. Do you think this will be the most watched game of the season with all the Jim Harbaugh, all that leading up to? Oh, he may be suspended by the time this game kicks off, which would only help the ratings here. But this may be Nick Saban's final playoff run. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this epic showdown and just how many eyes are going to be on it?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? I think my hot sports opinion is that it will be. I think that this will be the most watched college football game of the year. It was, or it is to this point, the Michigan-Ohio State game was the most watched, I think, with about 19 million. viewers. And so I think with the brand of Michigan, the success of Alabama, the what do you want to call it? The everything that's gone on with Michigan this year, and the alleged cheating scandal, plus Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time. The Rose Bowl is a big deal. So I think it will be. I mean, there's a lot of people, including myself, that feel like this is the national championship game. And for Michigan, they've wet the bed in this situation, in this scenario, the past 2 years. They got beat by TCU last year. They got beat in the college football semifinal the year before. So this is a big game for Michigan. They need to show up, and quite frankly, they need to win, because they have gotten to this point the last couple of years, but in this game, they haven't showed up and they haven't showed out at all.
Right, and you pointed out something to us leading up to the show at the SEC Championship. Nick Saban, Kirby Smart met up midfield, and Saban, they caught his audio, said, "Hey, I'm getting too old for this." And, he may have been just kidding around, but what's your thoughts on that? It's just the fact that this could be Saban's last ride, because I would imagine he's probably energized by Georgia, all this dynasty talk with the Bulldogs going for a three-peat, something that he never did. He was able to smash that, being an underdog to his, the guy that he trained, that kind of stole the blueprint for his program. I don't know. I feel like that may have energized him, but for how long? For another championship run? For another 5 years? Who knows? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is this just what older people say in life? Like, I'm getting too old for this. Like, don't we all know somebody old that says that a lot? I'm getting too old for this. And I think when Nick Saban is saying this to Kirby Smart, I think he's talking about the NIL. I think he's talking about the portal. I don't think he's talking about ball. I think he's talking about all the bull crap that's going on outside of just football. And so my question is does the AD have a contingency plan? What if Nick Saban was to say, you know what? I got my 8th championship. I'm good. I'll be an advisor. I'll work for ESPN. I'll be an advisor for Nick Saban or for Alabama. I wonder who their contingency is. It Dan Lanning? Is it Dabo Sweeney? You're not getting Kirby Smart to come to Tuscaloosa. Sorry, Alabama fans. So I think you always got to have that conversation.
All right. Well, hey, coming up, we're going to talk the Orange Bowl, the final segment here. We've had some drama here. Could the drama itself in the Orange Bowl be better than the game? We'll talk about it coming up on Rivals Down South. Rivals down south here. Final segment. We're going to talk some Orange Bowl, Hudson, with your Dogs facing Florida State. At least we think they're going to face Florida State. Florida State's opting out. They're canceling press conferences. They're mad at the world. They didn't make the college football playoff. They're still crying. They're probably trying to sue somebody. What do you make of all these shenanigans? And can there be anything done to prevent opt-outs like we're seeing from the Seminoles?
No, I don't see anything yet, yet I haven't been made aware of anything that can keep these guys in bowl games. If guys want to go to the NFL and prepare for the draft, they're going to do it. There's no way to prevent guys from getting out. Johnny Wilson, their big receiver, now gone. Florida State's got players left and right dropping out. Still haven't heard from Georgia. Their big players is Brock Bowers going to play. And then yesterday, the Orange Bowl cancels a press conference between Mike Norvell and Kirby Smart. I think it's that these two coaches are acting like they don't really want to be there. I mean, did you see them on the press conference the other day? The first one, they both looked like, puppies with the tail tucked between their legs. I get it. Upset they didn't make the playoff, but I don't know what the show out is going to be like from a fan base perspective. This is probably not going to be a very compelling matchup.
Right, and from what we've seen from Florida State's offense, I mean, it doesn't matter who shows up. If they had a full roster, it wouldn't be that great. We'll have to see what Carson Beck does. Who knows if he even suits up in this game. But either way, Georgia's a huge favorite. I don't care who shows up. They're going to whoop up Seminoles. They could cancel the whole thing right now. They may as well because they're getting killed in the Orange Bowl.